Alex Eala's Manila fan meet sells out Glorietta in minutes. Wow, guys, so what happened 2 hours is fully redeemed now. That is the sentence bouncing around Filipino tennis Twitter tonight. 48 hours before a single person has walked through the door. And it is worth asking out loud whether that sentence is even true. Because on Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, at the Glorietta Activity Center in Makati City, there are no tickets. Tickets to sell? Globe Telecom, the company that signed Eala as an ambassador years before she was famous, has announced the event as free and open to the public. Registration at 4 in the afternoon, program at 6, access details still being finalized as recently as last week, nothing is being sold. And yet the sentence keeps traveling because everyone reading it understands what it actually means. It means that a 21-year-old who was ranked outside the top 100 a year ago is about to walk into a shopping mall in her own country, and the country is going to arrange itself around her arrival. This is a story about what that sentence gets wrong on the surface and what it gets exactly right underneath. 6 days before Wednesday, Alex Eala walked off center court at Wimbledon, having become the first Filipina in history to reach the round of 16 of a Grand Slam. She lost that round to Jasmine Paolini of Italy, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6, winning the middle set and unable to close the third. 2 days later, she was on a plane. And on Sunday, July 12th, she landed at Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3 to a crowd that turned an ordinary arrivals hall into something closer to a stadium, greeted personally by the president of the Philippine Olympic Committee, Representative Abraham Bambol Tolentino. That was 3 days ago. Wednesday is the country's turn. There is a question tennis has been quietly asking about Alex Eala for most of 2026, and it isn't the question you'd expect. It isn't whether she can beat top 10 players. She has now beaten 7 of them. Most recently, the defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek on center court in straight sets, 7-6, in the tiebreak, 11-9, then 6-2. That question is answered. The question tennis is asking is whether one 21-year-old can absorb the weight of an entire country's projection without deforming under it. Because the projection is real and it is heavy, and other players who have carried something like it have said so out loud. Ans Jabeur, carrying North Africa, has talked about the specific kind of pressure that comes with being the face of a nation, a pressure that does not resemble ordinary tennis pressure. The Filipino fanbase has, at moments, disrupted matches and created logistical problems for tournament organizers who were not prepared for the volume of it. Novak Djokovic, asked about the crowds trailing Eala at the Australian Open in January, called it a good problem to have. That is a diplomat's phrase, and diplomats use those phrases when the honest answer is more complicated. The honest answer is that carrying a country is a gift and a burden in the same motion, and the question underneath Wednesday's fan meet, underneath the viral sentence about Glorietta selling out, is whether Eala can hold both without dropping either. Everything you need to understand about Wednesday is contained in 5 months of tennis before it. So start there. Start with the Swiatek match. Swiatek was the defending Wimbledon champion and the world number 3. Center court third round Saturday afternoon in London. Eala won it 7-6 in a tie. Break that went to 11-9, and then she took the second set 6-2, and when the match was over she told ABS-CBN in Tagalog about the design her team had put on her racket bag without telling her. Actually, this was a surprise to me. They made this, they showed it to me. It is a small quote. It matters. Because it is the sound of a player who had just beaten the defending champion of a Grand Slam on center court and was in the same breath, being genuinely surprised by something small. That is the register in which she operates. The next round, she lost to Paolini in 3. She left London with the best Grand Slam result of her career, the £300,000 prize check that comes with a round of 16 finish and the flight home to a country that had been waiting for her before she was ever a headline. Now widen the lens because London was not an accident. It was the crest of a wave. And the wave has been building all year. In January, she headlined the inaugural Philippine Women's Open at Rizal Memorial Tennis Center, the first WTA tournament ever hosted on Philippine soil. In February and March, she went to Dubai and reached the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships, and every single one of her matches sold out. Not the phrase, the actual thing. Every match sold out. When she played Coco Gauff in the same tournament, Gauff, a Grand Slam champion and American star, said afterward, "I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot." She was not talking about her own draw, She was talking about Islas. Then came Indian Wells in March, where front office sports reporters watched several thousand fans stay in the cold at Stadium 3 until almost midnight for a second-round match, and where her practice sessions pulled crowds comparable to Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Venus Williams on courts a few feet away. In Melbourne in January, her first-round loss had been assigned to a smaller court, and fans were forced to stand, packed against the fencing, because the tournament had not anticipated the volume. That is a 5-month pattern. That is what the viral sentence about Glorietta is actually referencing, whether the people sharing it know it or not. Here is the breathing space because you need it. Consider what has happened to the Philippines' relationship with tennis in the 6 months between January and July of 2026. In January, the country hosted its first-ever WTA tournament. In July, one of its citizens reached the round of 16 of a Grand Slam for the first time in national history. That is not a normal timeline. That is a country and an athlete accelerating together in a way that does not usually happen in a sport this old. Which brings us to the third cluster of evidence, and to the reason Wednesday matters more than a fan meet should, because a fan meet is not, on paper, a sporting event. It is a shopping mall appearance. Registration at 4, program at 6, no ticket, no draw, no scoreline, and yet Ayala Avenue on Wednesday evening is going to look like something else, and the reason is not marketing. The reason was named, on the record, by a Filipino sports journalist named T.J. Manitok, who spoke to Front Office Sports back in March about why crowds were following Ayala around the world. Manitok said this: "The country has been hungry for the next Manny Pacquiao. When he was at his peak, life stopped. When there's a fight, nothing's on the road. Everyone's watching." That is the sentence. That is the frame. The country has been waiting. Not since Wimbledon, not since Dubai, not since Miami last year when she made her first big splash. It has been waiting for years, and it has now decided, collectively and without a vote, that the wait is over. That is what Wednesday is. It is not the fans finding out about Alex Eala. It is Alex Eala finding out in her own country in a shopping mall in Makati what the country has already quietly agreed she is. The peer chorus around her has been saying versions of this for months in their own language. Djokovic called the crowds a good problem. Andy Roddick on his podcast Served said, "This is the type of story you cheer for because it's great for tennis." A BNP Paribas Open executive named Philippe Dor told Front Office Sports, "We love every minute of it, we benefit from it, we promote it." Coco Gauff spoke about full stadiums. The Princess of Wales, Catherine, was among those who publicly reacted to the Swiatek win at Wimbledon alongside Billie Jean King, Venus Williams, and Maria Sharapova. Sharapova being, per Ayala, herself, her childhood idol. That is a room. That is the room a 21-year-old from Manila is now standing in. Whether or not that room has fully processed her yet, the room hashes, at minimum, turned its head. Zoom out one more time, because the stakes on Wednesday are not really about Wednesday. 12 days after the Glorietta fan meet, on July 27th, Alex Eala steps onto a hard court at the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, a WTA 500 tournament, her return to competition. After that comes the Canadian Open, then Cincinnati, then the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows from August 30th through September 13th, the final Grand Slam of the year. She has earned $871,438 in prize money in the 2026 season before Wimbledon, plus the £300,000 from London, and she has a world ranking that is either 30 or 32, depending on which day of the ranking cycle you check. But those are numbers. And numbers are not what Wednesday is for. Wednesday is for something that does not appear on the WTA website. Wednesday is the country telling her in person what her country has decided she means, so that when she walks onto the hard court in Washington 12 days later, she is not walking on alone. She is walking on with a mandate. That mandate did not exist 12 months ago. In 6 months it has been built, ratified, and delivered, first through a Manila stadium in January, then through Dubai in February, then Indian Wells, then Berlin, then Wimbledon, and now in the most domestic possible setting, in a mall a few kilometers from where she grew up, on Wednesday at 6 in the evening. And still, she is coming home nearly, not undefeated. The Paulini match was 3 sets, and Eala won the middle one, and then she couldn't hold the third. The scoreline was 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. That is a real loss, 6 days old, and it is the last competitive match she has played. She has not spoken publicly at any length about how it felt, and this script will not invent a quote for her. What can be said factually is that the plane ticket home was booked before that loss, and she was coming home either way. She just did not know when she booked the ticket whether she would be arriving as a fourth-round Grand Slam player or as something more. She arrived as the former, and the country came to the airport anyway, and will come to the mall on Wednesday anyway, because the country was never actually waiting for her to win a Grand Slam. It was waiting for her to come home. So back to the sentence at the top. Alex Eala's Manila fan meet sells out Glorietta in minutes. It is not, strictly speaking, true. Nothing is being sold. There is no clock ticking down on a Ticketmaster page. There is a mall activity center in Makati and a registration table opening at 4 and a program starting at 6 and a 21-year-old who will walk in through some door somewhere with a security detail and a set of prepared remarks she will probably deviate from. Nothing was sold, and everything was already gone. That is the accurate version. 48 hours ago, the question was whether Manila would come. On Wednesday evening, it will have already answered, and the answer was decided a long time before Wimbledon, decided during the Miami run last year, and during the Dubai sellouts this spring, and during a late night at Stadium 3 in Indian Wells when several thousand people would not leave. The score they will know by heart before she reaches the microphone is 7-6, 11-9, 6-2. The name they will chant is a name that used to belong only to a family in Manila and now belongs to a country. She belongs to Center Court, she belongs to Glorietta, she belongs to both at once, and Wednesday is the day both facts occupy the same room. If you want to watch what happens next, DC on July 27th, the hardcourt swing, the US Open in August, subscribe and turn notifications on, because whatever the next chapter is, it starts in a mall in Makati on Wednesday at 6, and it does not require a ticket, and it was never going to. Alex Eala's Manila fan meet sells out Glorietta in minutes.